this monological notion of reason, which was largely influenced by Descartes. The idea is reason is a monologue. It's something you do within yourself primarily. It's monological. And then also, secondly, reason is primarily about being logical. So I'm playing on both possibilities of the word monological. And so that framework says that the main way in which we understand cognition is about an individual mind or brain in relationship to the world. And you have this individualistic, monological framework for how we should try and reflect philosophically and scientifically on the mind. And then you have that the machines we're making for a very long time are individual computers. So you've got individualism, you've got the idea of a computer as a formal system, and it's formal, it's self-contained, it's self-enclosed, right? And then we've got the machines we're making are individual machines. And so that's the model of how we still predominantly think about the mind. And you look through Freud, Jung, a little bit of Jung gets bent with the collective unconscious, but Piaget, right? All of these seminal thinkers are within this monological framework. And what happens is, first of all, notice what we're using here. We're using distributed computation. The internet and social media, what computer are they in? They're not in any computer. They're in a dynamical system running on many computers that are just working together. We have distributed cognition, and it makes possible certain kinds of problem solving that you can't do with an individual computer. I do think what I said earlier about our rationality being carried much more in our distributed intelligence than our individual intelligence, and that collective intelligence can grok reality deeper than we can, that there is reason to pay attention to the way in which that Geist, to use Hegel's term, that logos can show up, dia, by means of that logos can show up between us, beyond us, and draw us into a way of, I want to use a Platonic notion here, a way of remembering our connectedness to being. So when people are doing these practices, they say, Freddie, they say something reliable. It's really provocative and interesting. They'll say, I discovered a kind of intimacy I didn't know about, but I was always looking for. And that sounds so much like Plato's sense of anamnesis. You remember something, but you didn't know that you had it in your memory. It's that weird paradoxical memory. I was looking for it and I didn't know it. I recognized it even though I didn't know I was looking for it. And what they're talking is it's a remembering of a deep connectedness to themselves, to other people, to wisdom and virtue, and through all of that to an aspect of reality that they had in some sense forgotten about in their monological way of living. And that helps guide people. When we're doing dialectic into dialogos, you're always doing it on a virtue. What is honesty? And what people end up saying, and I want to say why this is important. They end up saying, I didn't realize there was so much to honesty. And they have an experience of awe, and they feel called by that awe into aspiring to be more honest. And see, a virtue isn't just having beliefs. It's having skills, it's having states of mind, it's having traits of character, it's being called into transformation. Virtue means a power in virtua, virtual reality, all that stuff. It means power and possibility. And so when you do these practices, people get called in this deep sense to virtue and get called into connectedness in a way that seriously helps them to return to the practices they're engaging in for overcoming self-deception and enhancing the connectedness that is at the core of feeling that your life is meaningful. So yes, I think it is deeply central to responding to the meaning crisis in that way. Reality is properly leveled, that there's not only bottom-up emergence, there's top-down emanation. Because if you have just bottom-up emergence without top-down, then the upper levels are just epiphenomena. They have no causal reality. And so you need to have it all the way up and all the way down, right? And now that takes me to the next point. And I would connect Michael's work with the work of somebody who's really important to me personally and also professionally, and this is Evan Thompson and his notion of deep continuity. See, deep continuity tries to split the difference, sail between Scylla and Charybdis. The one monster is reductionism, which says the only thing that's real is the bottom level, the very, very bottom level. And so there's nothing real except the levels below. And then, as Ned Block says, the argument actually drives you to that the only thing that's real is the bottom level, and everything else above it is epiphenomena, illusion. And the problem you have with that is you have the measurement problem. You have what I call the science problem. Well, how do you know about the bottom level? Well, the science level. Well, that requires the level at which scientists are real and their equipment is real and their calculations are real. And therefore, that level has to be real if any of the conclusions it's drawing about the bottom level are real, and so on. And so that's right. That's, I think, properly right, which means you don't claim you can simply identify the upper levels with the bottom level. That's reductionism. The other would be a kind of dualism. We'll say, well, then the mind and consciousness are completely separate kinds of stuff, and they have no basis in the biology, a kind of Cartesianism, right? You have a dualism. Mind and matter are completely different kinds of stuff, and then, of course, how they interact has become very problematic. And we're prone to dualism. We love dualisms. We there's the supernatural world, the natural world. There's the mental, which is immaterial, non-physical. There's the physical, and we do all of this, and that's problematic because how it all makes sense, how it could possibly be causally connected, becomes utterly mysterious. How could my mental states make my body move? How could things happening in my body cause mental states like pain? And so that's the other monster. That's Charybdis. And so what instead, and I think what Michael's work points to, is what Evan calls deep continuity. Deep continuity is the idea that there are shared principles between the levels. So a lot of the principles at work in life are actually also at work in mind. I tried to show you that earlier about how relevance realization is grounded in autopoiesis, right? It doesn't mean that life is nothing but chemical, but it's also not something separable from it. It's eminent, emergent, emergent, eminent. So this is deep continuity.